into a space where beauty meets authenticity and transformation is not just a possibility, but a promise. I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce you to someone truly special, Dr. Rukmini Vinaya Rednam, the compassionate force behind the countless remarkable transformations in the vibrant city of Houston, Texas. Picture this: every curve, every contour crafted with care and expertise, not just by a board-certified plastic surgeon, but your very own cheerleader for self-discovery and confidence. Get ready to embark on a journey where we explore the art of science of feeling your very best self. This isn't just a podcast. It's your cozy corner of empowerment and inspiration. So pull up a chair, pour yourself a cup of kindness, and let's dive into the Confidence Doc podcast with Dr. Rukmini Vinaya Rednam.
Welcome to the Confidence Doc podcast. I'm Dr. Rednam, board-certified plastic surgeon in the Houston, Texas area with my Houston surgeons. We have a very special guest, someone I've known for a long time, Dr. Dhivya Srinivasa.
Thank you so much for having me, and Happy New Year.
So you have a unique situation, right? You're in private practice, but you do largely breast reconstruction, and not just breast reconstruction, but free tissue transfer, free flaps. And that's a unique thing. So how did you decide to start that on your own? Like, how did you end up in that venture?
Yeah. So micro, because I just loved it. When I was in training, I was fast at it. I was good at it. I loved having an all-female practice. I loved working with cancer patients, and I was good at it. So that made sense. I did what I think all of us kind of do, is sort of follow the pack. So I graduated from fellowship, and everybody in micro goes into academics. So I took an academic position in LA, and I was the only female, only non-white person in my group. And it just was like the writing was always on the wall. But I had just had my third kid, and we had bought a house, and there's how it is. There's a lot of I just need to earn my living and keep on chugging along. But it became very obvious to me that I wasn't happy in that paradigm. I didn't feel like I could do cases the way that I wanted to. I didn't feel like the experience was like the Srinivasa experience. It was the experience of the hospital, and they weren't the same thing. And then I think we people really don't ever want to talk about the finances of medicine, but let's talk about the finances of medicine, right? When you're employed, you just get paid a salary. Everybody thinks that doctors have their hands in the money pot and that the doctors decide, no, we don't. We literally work for the man, and they determine how much they're going to pay us. And they are the ones sitting at the table negotiating with the insurance companies on how much they think we should get paid. And the worst part is they will often sacrifice our reimbursement, the professional reimbursement, in order to make more on the facility side, which is the hospital reimbursement. So what we're seeing over time is a devaluing of physician reimbursement. So I knew that I was doing 3 to 4 bilateral flaps a week. So that's like 6 to 8 flaps. And I knew how much money the hospital was making because I asked for the data. I said, give me my collections data. And I looked at it and I go, well, just imagine that all those professional fees were going into my bank account instead of the hospital's bank account. I'd be a lot better off, huh? And the thing is, it was so funny is what you hear back from everyone is, you're doing great. Your husband's a doctor. You live in LA. And it's not about that. Am I getting what I deserve for the work that I'm putting in? Am I getting back? Or is some other man eating that paycheck? And the latter didn't sit well with me. I'm lucky. My husband's a professor at UCLA. He was doing well for himself. It didn't really matter if I worked or not. We were in a position financially that it's great that I was earning an income, but I didn't have to, because for the whole time that we've been married, my husband's been out of training and I was in training. So I just decided I'm unhappy with my work environment. I don't think I'm getting paid what I'm worth. I don't think any other academic setup is going to give me the same. So you know what? I'm just going to go out on my own. And if I make it, great. If not, I'll go into real estate or be a really fantastic stay-at-home mom. Whatever it is, I'll figure it out. And I had to make a critical decision of, am I going to be in network or out of network? And I, at the same time, was really watching the insurance companies really destroy physician reimbursement, especially for complicated surgeries like microvascular surgery. And I kind of felt like, I know I'm still pretty young, but there's a reason I'm so busy. And it must be because I am really good at this thing that I do. And I'm doing all these complicated flaps that other people aren't doing. And I'm taking on these hard cases. I deserve to be reimbursed for it. So I decided to go out of network, and I've never looked back.
No, that's great. I think it's important to know your worth. And I think that especially for female surgeons, a lot of it is that, oh, your husband's doing great. Well, you are your own individual. And when any of us choose to pursue careers, like we have our own goals for ourselves that have nothing to do with the money.
No, absolutely. And beyond that, like you would never go to a male surgeon and go, well, your wife's doing great. I mean, no, we would never say that. So I mean, it's just the oddest thing. I even had this interaction with my old boss where he said, he goes, I have friends at UCLA. I know how much he makes. I said, I got to stop you right there. That literally has zero to do with the conversation between you and I as like an employer and an employee on what I deserve to make. So why are you bringing in irrelevant variables? But we're not really empowered to say those things, right? We're kind of just told to be grateful for the job that we have, and that's nonsense.
Well, and it's important for our listeners to understand too is yes, we're talking about reimbursement. At the end of the day, yes, we all got into this because we love what we do and we want to take care of our patients, but it is still a job, right? We still are worked really hard. And so just like any position, we want to be properly reimbursed for the work that we've put our lives into, literally.
Absolutely. And people don't expect free labor from anybody else, right? If you see a lawyer, they invoice you for the hours, like their billable hours, right? But when it comes to doctors, how much
Every
time we
email
spend?
you send them.
No, 100%, right? But do you know how much time you and I spent emails, text messages, phone calls, charting, op reports? We're not paid for
Yeah.
that at all. So it's just, I don't understand where medicine has gone. It's like a rant. I could go on for hours, but to me, this was an opportunity that I could take back control over my practice, over my skill set, and provide it in the way that I felt comfortable.
And I think also part of it is when we're properly reimbursed, then I can do all the things I want to do for my patients. I can provide that extra level of service. And, while I don't do anywhere near the number of flaps you do, I still do, I am also in a private practice situation doing deep flaps. And I love that I'm able to do that because I get reimbursed for things well, and I can provide my patients with all these extra things that I know they are not getting in academic setting. And I think that's important. I think it's really, really important. And I love that we're women doing it too, because I think that there's excellent male plastic surgeons out there, but there is something different for a woman providing services for a woman. It just is the way it is.
It is the way it is, and our patients would agree.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I really love about you, you're badass, clearly when it comes to business, but you also know how to have some fun. I love watching your socials. You do a lot with fashion. You do a lot with even makeup tutorials. How does that fit into who you are as a plastic surgeon, or is that a totally different side of you?
I really think it is a totally different side of me. It's always been a side of me. My girlfriends back from college and med school always joke. They were like, you were the OG influencer. You were doing all of our makeup before Instagram was even a thing. So I think I've always been interested in it. I just think I suppressed that side of myself for so long through general surgery training, plastic surgery training. Fellowship was just a lot because I was pregnant with my third kid. It wasn't really, I didn't even feel like myself. And then in academia, I kind of felt like I had to be a different version of myself to suit what they wanted. And then when I went private, saw that I was doing well, and I was happy. I was happy. Excuse me. I really quickly realized there are a lot of things I want to do to be happy, and I actually don't care at all what other people think. It was very freeing. Something about doing my skill set and my job on my terms was really freeing for me. You and I were chatting on Instagram, and you had asked me if I was going to go to our national meeting, and I do like to usually go. And I got to tell you, the very first one after I went private, I was almost a little nervous. Like, what were my mentors going to say? What did people think? I almost felt like everyone was waiting for me to fail. I really felt like there was a lot of, she's never going to make it. What is she trying to do? And I was a little bit nervous, and I felt a little awkward there. And then I went to, when I couldn't make it to that year, but the year after that I went to, it was amazing watching colleagues from MD Anderson and other big hospitals come up to me and go, oh my God, I saw that case that you did and you posted on Instagram. That's wild. You should be up on this podium talking about what you do. And that was so therapeutic, first of all, because I do think we all seek validation, right? In medicine, I don't want to pretend and I'm not above that. I still wanted that validation, and I got it. But I also walked into that meeting, regardless of what other people said, knowing that I deserve that validation, that I do so many flaps a year, that my outcomes are phenomenal. And I knew everybody was watching, and I knew that everyone was tuning into my socials, and that was a kind of a different place to be. Social
Hmm.
media wasn't really what it is now when you and I were training. It's
Yes.
very much become something so different. And so I think when I saw that, when I felt so comfortable in my own skin, that's when I was like, you know what? I actually really like social media, and I want to do it as something more than what it was before, which was just a means to share breast microsurgery. So I
Uh-huh.
really took a deep dive and started sharing all these other things. And I share it really unapologetically because it's who I am. And it is kind of a different version of me. It's not necessarily the doctor microsurgeon version of me that people get, but it's still me.
Well, and I think that who we are in our private lives is important too because we are human beings. And I think that when we're, like you were saying, you felt happy when you finally made this decision. You want your physicians, you want your surgeons to be happy because happy people do better work. I mean, I'm going to like quote Legally Blonde here, but like happy people don't murder people.
Right,
Like
right.
it just doesn't happen. So when we're balanced in our lives, then when we're at work, we can give our 100%.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I say this about a lot of things too, even about motherhood. When people question your ability to be a surgeon and be a mother, I always tell people I'm a better surgeon because I'm a mother. My
Mhm.
sympathy, my empathy, my ability to multitask all are so much better. So I think happy people make better surgeons, and I think fulfills people make better surgeons. And if motherhood fulfills you, I have no doubt that also makes you a better care provider.
I 100% agree with you. What do your kids think about you being a surgeon?
It's funny. When I was growing up, my mom would always say this. She's like, "You guys never took me seriously," and she still says that. My mom's a doctor, also double boarded, and she's right. She was always mom to us, not just mom, but like mom, right? Amma was like, just the nurturer and always there to like help us feel better, cook for us. And I sort of just ignored what she did for a living. I almost never cared. Whereas I was very engrossed in what my dad did for a living as an engineer, even though my mother was the breadwinner. She made more money. Similarly, my husband and I are both in medicine, but I'm the breadwinner. I make more. But I don't think they care. I'll be completely honest. I think for them, still, mom is mom. Mom is the nurturer. Mom's going to make you feel better when you're not feeling well. Mom's going to plan the fun vacations, things like that. So they don't really care. They're a lot more consumed by what my husband does for a living than I do. I like to think of it as like, okay, that must mean that I'm doing a good job at momming too, because they still get that version of me. They think it's a little trippy. The social thing is a little weird for them. They don't really get. But it's interesting. I don't know what they think about it. I definitely has not inspired any of them to go into surgery. I'll tell you that much.
That's okay. My daughter said that she'd like to start off doing my husband's job, which is a pathologist. Then she's going to be a surgeon, and then she's going to be a police officer. So I was like, oh, that
I
sounds
love
great.
that.
She's going to do a little bit of
That's a great
everything.
evolution. I like that.
Yeah. But you know what? I think it is. I agree with you. Like, there are times which people will talk a lot about balance when it comes to medicine for men and for women. And I think it's hard, but I really enjoy that. Like, I get to be this role model for my kids and see that while I love being mom, that I can be something more too.
Yeah, and it's so funny how like triggering this topic is for people on social. Anytime I post about this, I get a lot of the positive too. Thanks for sharing. This is great. But I get a lot of, why are you hating on stay-at-home moms? I'm like, I'm not. I was raised by an aunt who chose to give up everything to raise me so that my mother could work, right? So I am not devaluing the woman who chooses to stay home. Society is devaluing her. Society is telling you that she's not worthy of a paycheck, or she's not worthy of respect. It is not that one has to suffer at the consequence of another. It is rather that we can be whatever we want to be on the spectrum. If you want to work 1 day a week, great. You want to work 7 days a week, great. Up to you. Live your best life. But the ability to choose and the ability to change is what we all deserve. And I think that's what's really missing.
And really, especially in the field of medicine, women are getting bigger numbers in medical school. We're seeing bigger numbers coming into things that weren't traditionally female. So we are seeing surgeons across the board. I mean, I can remember even when we were in training being like orthopedics, that was something that you only ever saw guys go into. And now I'm seeing like whole classes of female orthopedic surgeons, which is just like blows my mind.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think we're definitely on the right track. But I also feel like we got to catch the boys up, right? Because there's been sort of a miseducation of the men, we are being told we can do it all, right? But I don't want to have to do it all. I can, but I should be able to do it with my spouse. We should be able to, if I'm going to work and manage the household, then they can work and manage the household. It shouldn't just be that they work. I think that's kind of what we need to do a better job of. So when I'm raising my boys, I have 2 boys and a girl, but with the boys, I'm always telling them, like, if they ask for cookies, I was like, okay, why don't you figure out how to make them and we'll make them together. It's we can all make cookies. We can all clean up the playroom. We can all pack for our trip.
I couldn't agree with you more, though, about that. We don't have to do it all. Like, if I had to pick, my husband is actually more the primary caregiver for our kids than I am. And it doesn't mean I'm not mommy and do everything I need to do, but he's there more often. So he's the one that takes care of them on a more regular basis than I do. And I don't think in any way that's diminished my value to them.
No, it's setting the stage for who they could be, which I think is for both your son and your daughter. Because your son, did you have right one of each?
Oh, I've got 2 girls. 2 girls.
2 girls. Sorry. Okay, I got that wrong. Okay, well, for the sake of conversation, let's pretend like you have one of each. But I'm just saying, if you have, like, I have 2 boys and a girl.
Yeah.
For the boys, they get to see what it's like when dad does carpool, when dad can be the room dad. And they still see mom at the Halloween party and mom at the parade and all of that, but they also see dad. Similarly, my daughter sees mom sometimes has to go into work and sometimes dad's going to be the one who does Saturday morning breakfast or whatever it is. So when both genders are getting exposed to that, I think hopefully I'm raising my sons to be really good partners to their wives or, whoever they marry one day. And same thing that my daughter grows up understanding that she can create her own situation.
Exactly. We don't need to be stereotyped into one role. We can actually share and grow together, because I try to show that to my girls, that like a really supportive spouse wants the best for you too. It's not just about you, one person, it's about you two together.
100% shared goals.
So, what are some things that you are really excited for? We're just a couple weeks into the new year. What are some big things on the menu for Dr. Srinivasa?
What are some big things? So I am launching a wellness brand in April, which I am super excited about. Really starting with skincare, and it is entirely centered around my experience as a care provider for breast cancer patients. So what I quickly learned is that women will come into my office and they'll be told that they should avoid manicures, avoid pedicures, stop all their skincare, and just use Vaseline. And the reality is they don't have to just use Vaseline, but the medical system does not have the time and the bandwidth to sit through their skincare routine and say, like, well, maybe not retinol, but bakuchiol is okay, or whatever it may be. So I really wanted to create a line of products that are cater to a woman that is healing. The reality is a lot of us are healing, whether it's postpartum, prepartum, IVF, autoimmune disease, chemotherapy, radiation, menopause, whatever it is, right? And I wanted to be able to create a list of products where I feel I can say, I have vetted these ingredients. I formulated this from scratch. There was no pulling anything off the shelf and putting my name on it, and create an entire brand around what it is to be a woman, because we really do evolve and change so much. And there's so much that goes on with our bodies. And very little of it is explained, and even less of it is catered to that, right? So that is going to launch in the spring, which I'm super excited about. That's, social is a side of me, being a surgeon is a side of me. And I want to say this is like my 4th child. It's a whole other side of me. I've put so much into really like creating a world that hopefully every woman like us looks at and goes, that's where I belong. Like, that's what makes sense for me. So we're launching in spring. So that's a large amount of my focus is going into that. Still working on real estate. It's always been a passion project of mine, especially in LA. So I have some commercial real estate projects going on, and then really figuring out what I want to do with social. I have so many different feelings about it. Some days I love it. Some days I hate it. Meta just came out with I'm removing the fact checker thing. And I don't know. I don't know, I think is the answer. I wonder what social is really meant to be. So I don't know. I think I'm just going to keep putting out how I feel about the world, whether it's which bronzer I'm using or something feminist, and we'll see where it goes.
No, I agree with you. There are days I absolutely love it, and I'm just so excited to film and create stuff. And the other days where I feel like I'm like kind of a slave to it. And I'm like, I got to get some material created. I got to do something. But then I'll have somebody come in and tell me about how they listen to a podcast or they watched a video and they just love it. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? This is worth it. This is because it feels good to know that you're connecting with people on that level.
Totally. I was just on vacation in India and we were in Trivandrum, actually. And this young woman came up to me and she's like, oh my God, I follow you on Instagram. And I'm like, this is so weird. I'm literally in the middle of India. And he's a physician. And it turns out that her younger sister works with my husband. It's this whole thing. But it was actually what you said. She came up and like, it's just cool to see like another woman with kids doing the damn thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's worth it.
So I've got a fun question for you. If you weren't a plastic surgeon, what would you be doing? Like outside of medicine, if you weren't in medicine, what would you be doing?
I think I would either be just like an entrepreneur, out there creating businesses, or I would go into fashion. And maybe a meld of the two, like fashion entrepreneur.
I had a feeling you'd say that. That's my answer as well. They're like, well, what would you do? I mean, I'd be a fashion designer. Duh. I mean, that's what I would do. I'm like, there's no... That's right. We have like the ultimate material that we work with. It's like, well, it sounds like you have so many exciting things going on, and I think that you should continue to do your inspiring things because, like I said, it's not just for patients. Sometimes socials can be so much more. It's also inspiring other physicians, clearly.
Yeah, I think that's a fun thing, but could also be sort of the double-edged sword of socials that you really do reach such a wide network of people, all walks of life, all parts of the globe. I think what's hard is that people forget what it is, which is it's just a social media platform, right? A 90-second reel could never be the entirety of someone's surgery or personality or outcome or outlook, right? And people take it so seriously. And a part of me is, first of all, it makes me scared to expose my children to it. But second of all, I think it takes away from what it was originally intended to be, which is just a fun way to connect with people.
It is. I mean, that's how it started off with. That's really what it was supposed to be. I can hope that as the years go on, people become kinder on social media because it's amazing how quickly people are judged, like you said, or just say these terrible things. And I have been loving this trend of people calling out these trolls by showing their profile pics and stuff. I love it. I'm like, if you're going to say that, we're going to put it up there because guess what? Everything on social media.
You don't get to hide in the comments, friend. You're going to be up for all 70,000 people to see. And I think a lot of people do hide. There are these little keyboard trolls that just hide in the comments, but it doesn't affect me personally because I have so much going on, but it makes me sad. I'm like, it's sad to me that you derive pleasure from making anybody feel negative, right? Whether you're commenting, and it's not even about me, it may be about a patient or whatnot, commenting about their looks or it's just, gosh, is that really where we are today? I don't know. I would hope for better.
I like to take the approach my mom uses where I just try to make them feel disappointed. I'm disappointed in them. You're like, that's the worst.
Exactly.
Well, it was so wonderful having you on the show. If any of our listeners wanted to get a hold of you, what would be the best way? How do they reach and connect with you?
So for anyone who's looking for microvascular breast reconstruction, my website is diabr.com, D-I-A-B as in boy, R.com. And then my social handle is at Dr. Dhivya Srinivasa, all one word, no dashes or dots, DRDHIVYASRINIVASA.
And don't worry, we will have it spelled. We know Indian last names are not always the easiest. Well, I am very excited for your wellness line coming out. We'll definitely be keeping a watch out for it. And if you ever decide we can go in on a fashion design, I would be game.
Yes, at the very least, we need a little shopping spree at the Galleria next time I'm in town.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you again for being on the Confidence Doc podcast, and thank you all for joining us. We are going to keep them coming. This season is going to be all about women's empowerment. We will have other fabulous plastic surgeons, but we're also going to have just a ton of amazing women who are out here to inspire us all.
As we wrap up another episode of The Confidence Doc, I want to extend our heartfelt thank you for being a part of our community. If today's conversation resonated with you, remember that Dr. Rednam and her team are here to support you on your journey to self-confidence and beauty. Your story is unique, and it's our privilege to help you create the masterpiece that is your life. If you'd like to book a consultation with Dr. Rednam, you can visit her webpage at drrukminirednam.com. Fill out a contact form, and one of her coordinators will get with you accordingly.